In an effort to become the first man in history to summit K2 in the winter, John Snorri, Ali Sadpara, and his son Sajid joined forces, along with fellow climber J.P. Moore of Chile. John and Ali vanished on the night of February 5th near the top of K2 and were never seen again. Officially ruled dead are missing climbers Muhammad Ali Sadpara and two others who vanished earlier this month while attempting to ascend the second highest mountain in the world. But the international mountaineering community will remember Sadpara as a talented climber and as a hero in his native Pakistan. He accomplished the first ever winter ascent of Nanga Parbat, the 9th highest peak in the world, and is the only Pakistani to have scaled 8 of the world's 14 tallest mountains. He and two other climbers, Juan Pablo Moore of Chile and John Snorri of Iceland, went missing on February 5th while attempting to ascend K2, the second highest peak in the world, at 8,611 meters, which is also rumored to be the deadliest. The plan was for him and his son Sajid to climb K2 without using any oxygen, which had never been done in the winter. But 300 meters from the top, at a place called the Bottleneck, commonly known as the Death Zone, Sajid had to turn round because he felt queasy. He then assisted military-led search and rescue teams as they looked for traces of his father and the two other guys on the mountain. All 3 climbers were pronounced dead on Thursday, formally ending the search. He added that the Army Aviation was assisting in the effort and that transferring the bodies down the mountain was very difficult due to the high altitude. Haidari said that Snorri's body would be shifted to Iceland at his wife Lena's request. The ACP secretary said that Moore's sister and mother had also decided that his body would be brought back to Chile. Talking to Dawn.com, Mushtaq Met, the base camp manager of Mashabum Expeditions, Treks and Tours, Pakistan, and the Madison Mountaineering K2 Expedition 2021, said that around 11 a.m. today, the Met Nepalese Sherpa rope fixing team found the first body 400 meters above Camp 4, which was Moore's. Why summit K2 without oxygen? One explanation is that he was obediently carrying out the terms of the contract he had made with John Snorri while serving as a high-altitude porter for him. But according to Nisar Abbas, that was only a deception. A few weeks prior, Sadpara had publicly stated his desire to do the climb after a 10-person Nepalese team, commanded by the renowned Nirmal Purja, became the first to summit K2 during the winter. Sadpara wanted to do it as well in order to break a record, but without oxygen. Additionally, he wanted his son to be present when it occurred. His son Sajid informed the media that the group had initially included between 25 and 30 local and foreign climbers, but that everyone had turned around before reaching the 8,000-meter mark. Sajid's own condition worsened when they hit the bottleneck. In our emergency supplies, we had an oxygen cylinder. My father instructed me to remove some and use it. It will improve my mood. However, the cylinder's mask regulator leaked as Sajid was assembling it. The 2 foreigners and his father kept scaling the bottleneck in the meantime. Then his father turned around and yelled for Sajid to continue climbing. I yelled about the leaking cylinder. "Don't worry, just keep going up, you'll feel better," he advised. But I couldn't muster the strength, so I made the decision to back away. It was Friday around noon. I last saw them doing that. Sajid responded when asked why Sadpara insisted on continuing. The Nepalese had done it weeks earlier, and also he wanted to do it too because K2 is our mountain. What could have happened? Sajid has stated he saw the 3 men climb over the bottleneck at the top, which means they probably made it to the summit. Experts say most accidents happen while descending, as even a slight loss of balance can send one crashing down into an abyss. Those who knew Sadpara doubt he would have made such an error. People in his village still recall more than one occasion when a goat Sadpara was tending in the mountains got injured, and instead of slitting its throat, as others would, he'd haul it over his shoulders and walk all the way down to take it to the village vet. They suspect he probably failed to make it back because one or both of his partners met with an accident, and he stayed, trying to find a way to save them. We'll probably never know. People in the area had been awaiting a miracle, but given the hostile environment, low oxygen, and winter temperatures dipping to as low as -80 degrees C, there's little chance the men could have survived a week at over 8,000 meters, his son said. This hasn't happened in climbing history, so we can only hope for a miracle. Sajid Sadpara told the BBC earlier. On Thursday, after his father's death was officially declared, Sajid vowed to continue following in his footsteps. To all the climbers who look up to him, I promise I will carry on his dreams and mission and continue to walk in his footsteps. The team found the second body when they were 300 meters away from the bottleneck. They were able to identify it as Sadpara. Another 100 meters away, they found Snorri's body. He further said that Ali Sadpara's son, Sajid Sadpara, is currently at Camp 4 and will be guided by the rope-fixing team to his father's body tomorrow morning. Sajid had earlier launched an expedition to retrieve the bodies of the 3 climbers. Canadian filmmakers Elias Saikali and Pasang Kaji Sherpa accompanied him. Ali Sadpara had gone missing along with his 2 climbing partners, Snorri and Moore, while attempting to climb K2, the world's second highest peak, at 8,611 meters. They were last observed on February 5th while attempting to climb Savage Mountain at the bottleneck on K2. The oxygen regulator of Sajid Sadpara, who was with the 3, broke down, forcing him to abandon his summit attempt and return to Camp 3. Sadpara, who grew up in the village of Sadpara in the Portering community in the Skardu region, once explained the financial dynamics that drove many to the mountains to carry loads for foreign expeditions, but few to climb in their own right. Many climb for money, which isn't that much, but it sustains people. However, not many of my fellow porters want to climb. If they had better opportunities, they would quit climbing, he said. Honestly, if you ask me, I would not want my children to work in this field. My sons are studying. One of them is in college and has simply refused to climb. I want to be able to earn enough to provide for my family. While helicopters have been searching the mountain's upper reaches for the 3, Pakistani media has followed the efforts with almost hourly updates, and social media users have posted their hopes for a rescue despite the dwindling odds. Among those still hoping for his safe return was the writer Fatima Bhutto, who tweeted on Monday, "Hoping so much for Ali Sadpara's safe return." After days of search efforts that included the use of Pakistan Army helicopters, satellite imagery, and SAR technology, the 3 climbers were officially declared dead on February 18. K2 was the only peak above 8,000 meters that had never been ascended in the winter until 2021, and it was on many mountaineers' radars. Ali Sadpara was the first mountaineer from Pakistan to have scaled 8 of the world's 14 highest peaks above 8,000 meters, and to have made Nanga Parbat's first ever winter ascent. Apart from Sadpara, Snorri and Moore, mountaineers Atanas Skatov and Sergei Mingale Moreno also attempted the K2 winter summit this year, but lost their lives there. Following Sadpara's death, the Gilgit-Baltistan government announced 3 million rupees for his family and a suitable job for his son. It also approved the establishment of the Muhammad Ali Sadpara Institute of Adventure Sports, Mountaineering and Rock Climbing in recognition of his services. The government also nominated Ali Sadpara for the highest national civil award.
Time to go and leave the summit of K2 behind. Bye.
Noel Hanna, an experienced alpinist, was found dead at a camp after climbing Annapurna's summit without supplemental oxygen. The Irish mountaineer's demise comes as a tragedy, as he was only 56 years old, and he achieved many big things in his short lifespan. This is the story of Noel Hanna. What had been a successful season on the 26,545-foot Annapurna turned deadly in recent days. Now, a veteran mountaineer is dead, another is missing, and multiple others are lucky to be alive after daring high-altitude rescues. Annapurna is notorious for being amongst the most dangerous peaks above 8,000 meters, and traditionally it was rarely attempted, and only then by the most skilled mountaineers. Of Nepal's 8 peaks above 8,000 meters, Annapurna has the lowest number of successful summits at 395 according to the Himalayan database. Mount Everest, by contrast, has more than 10,000. Annapurna also has the highest death rate amongst Nepali 8,000ers at 2.99%. Annapurna Peak in West Nepal, first climbed by Maurice Herzog of France in the early 1950s, is considered dangerous because of the risk of frequent avalanches. According to hiking officials, at least 365 people have climbed Annapurna, and more than 72 have died on the mountain. Nepal has 8 of the world's 14 highest mountains. Climbing Himalayan peaks and hiking on their foothills are popular adventure sports, as well as a source of employment and income for the country, which is tucked between China and India. But things are changing on the peak, and in recent years, guides have supplied high levels of support and supplemental oxygen to make the peak more accessible to less experienced climbers. Of the 395 total summits, 129, around 33%, have occurred in the past 3 years. The climbers at Annapurna this year pushed for the summit on April 15 to 16, and approximately 40 climbers reached the top during a narrow weather window. But according to multiple reports, the group struggled on the descent. Some climbers even got lost. When a violent storm hit the peak, climbers became pinned down at a high camp, and some became too sick to descend. Irish climber Noel Hanna, 56, died in his tent at Camp 4 at 23,300 feet after summiting without supplemental oxygen. Hanna's wife, Lynn Hanna, confirmed the tragedy in a post on Facebook. He returned to the tent, took some hot soup and fell asleep, never to awaken again. No drama, no big story. It was his time to go, and he died in the Himalayas, she wrote. What better place for my mountain man to sleep well? Noel. An Indian climber named Anurag Malu, 34, went missing on Monday, April 17 after reportedly falling into a crevice below Camp 3. Malu, who was attempting to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents, had abandoned his summit bid and was returning to base camp when he disappeared. Reports from Nepal say that a team of rescuers found Malu deep in a crevice and extracted him from the ice. The Associated Press reported that he was airlifted to hospital in Pokhara. However, his condition is unknown. Yubaraj Katiwada, a tourism official in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, said the cause of Mr. Hanna's death was unclear. The climber had just descended from Annapurna, the world's 10th highest peak according to his expedition agency, 7 Summit Treks. Mr. Katiwada also said that 2 Indian mountaineers went missing on Monday after losing radio contact with the base. Dozens of rescue workers were mobilized to locate the climbers, and one of them, Baljit Kaur, was later rescued at 24,156 feet. Officials said Ms. Kaur was airlifted to base camp and then flown to a hospital in Kathmandu, where she was reported to be in stable condition. The other climber, Anurag Malu, was still missing. Mr. Katiwada said the search for him was expected to resume on Wednesday. Around 3 Sherpas were believed to have died while climbing Mount Everest after a column of ice hit them, collapsing their path and burying them under the mounds of snow. The accident occurred near the Khumbu Icefall, a glacier near the 29,032-foot-tall mountain's base camp. Rescuers found the accident site, but couldn't approach it because it is considered one of the most avalanche-prone areas on Everest. Tourism officials in Kathmandu said that summiters have had to delay their expeditions for weeks because of unusual weather conditions. This has left them stranded on the base for weeks. Mountaineers have said descending Annapurna has become more challenging this year because of late snow and rainfall during the winter, making the routes slippery and more dangerous. Sherpas have had to struggle to clear routes up to the summit. Irish mountaineer Pat Falvey said he learned with great sadness and shock of Mr. Hanna's death. Extending his sympathy to Hanna's wife Lynn and his family, Falvey said, "Unfortunately, it's the game we play. It's not called the death zone for nothing. By the law of averages, the mountains do take life back, and he was doing what he loved, and he knew this. We have lost one of the best." Hanna, a former bodyguard, scaled the summit of Annapurna, but news of his success only filtered through on Sunday due to safety concerns. A renowned adventurer, he scaled summits and competed in sports adventures worldwide. He and his wife successfully summited Mount Everest in 2009 and 2016 from both sides. The couple frequently traveled from their home in Canada to Nepal. Hanna became the first Irish person to successfully summit and descend K2, the world's 2nd highest mountain, on July 21, 2018. He also helped others scale some of the world's most difficult mountains. In February 2019, Hanna accompanied the youngest person to climb the highest volcano in North America, Pico de Orizaba, which is 5,636 meters in Mexico, when he summited with the 12-year-old American Decatur Boland and his father Daniel. In the same year, he accompanied Sarah Kamalo to the summit of Everest. which is 8,848 meters, making her the first black African woman to reach the peak of the world's highest mountain. Almost 4 years ago, Hannah accompanied Seamus Shea Lawless, 39, from Bray County, Wicklow, who died just hours after summiting Everest. Mr. Lawless, a professor of artificial intelligence at Trinity College, Dublin, fell up to 500 meters during his descent in an area known as the balcony. Mr. Lawless did the climb to raise up to €25,000 for the Barrelstown Children's Charity, dedicated to seriously ill children and their families. More than €200,000 was raised to fund an effort to locate Mr. Lawless, but the search was eventually called off. Among the Dramara man's many mountaineering feats was becoming the first person from the island of Ireland to climb the world's second highest mountain, K2, in 2018, and had also summited Mount Everest 10 times. While known for his accomplishments in the Himalayas, the Mourne Mountains still held a special place in his heart, and he described them as God's own country. The Mourne Mountain Rescue Group joined in the tributes to Mr. Hannah, saying, "Noel was without a doubt Ireland's most accomplished mountaineer, a tremendous ambassador for mountaineering, and a truly inspirational figure whose influence reached many corners of the globe, while also keeping his roots well and truly embedded back here in the Mournes." Noel was an absolute gentleman, totally unassuming, and a friend to many of our team members, they added. Our thoughts are with Lynn, Noel's wider family, and friends at this time. Hannah even set a Himalayan first with Lynn when, in 2016, they became the first married couple to climb Mount Everest from the Nepalese and Tibetan sides. In a 2019 interview with Sunday Life, Mr. Hannah spoke frankly about the dangers involved in taking on some of the world's highest and most challenging peaks. "You know, when you go away, there is a chance you're not coming back. But that's just the way we live. And if you were to think about that every time you went out the door, then there's no point really living life," he said. Despite his impressive list of climbing achievements, Hannah remained admirably modest about his feats. He once told an audience of mountaineering enthusiasts, "Everybody out there, if they put the effort and the time in, can do what I've done. There's nothing special about anybody who climbs Everest." In the haunting shadow of K2, the world's second highest peak, unfolds the harrowing account of Mohammed Hassan's final 3 hours. Amidst the breathtaking but perilous landscape, these moments encapsulate a heart-wrenching tale of survival, sacrifice, and the indomitable human will, tested to its limits. Mohammed Hassan, 27, was said to have slipped and stayed hanging with a rope as he waited for help in the hours before his death. Hassan was an employee of Lila Peak Expedition. Alex Abramov's 7 Summit Club assigned him to assist the rope fixers during the summit push. Before the summit push, all companies provided workers to join the rope fixing team, Abramov told sources. "We contributed with 3 Pakistani HAPs. Hassan was one of them. We don't know what really happened because he was ahead of our members and the Sherpa group," Abramov added. "Members only saw that something happened at the ropes in the traverse. Some climbers, including Lakpa Sherpa of 8K Expeditions and cameraman Philip Flamig, noted that Hassan needed to be more experienced and that his equipment needed to be improved for a summit push on K2. Reporters contacted Lila Peak Expeditions for a statement, but we have yet to hear back." At roughly 2:30 a.m. on July 27th, a long line of climbers moved slowly above 8,000 meters on K2, the second highest mountain in the world, and one of the most dangerous. It was dark as they navigated the bottleneck and the hazardous traverse below the Great Serac. They were focused on their goals. Some were pursuing records. Most knew that they would have to summit that day or go home. Their expeditions wrapped up at the end of the month. According to a report, expedition leaders coordinating the summit push from base camp started receiving reports of avalanches and then an accident. Soon after, triumphant summit announcements drowned out the concern. Kristin Harila of Norway and Tengen Sherpa Lama were among the first to reach the top. A large Sherpa team, which helped fix ropes on the upper sections, supported them. Other climbers followed closely behind. It was eventually confirmed that a Pakistani porter, Mohammed Hassan, had died. Information about his death remained sketchy. When we started asking around, we received few answers, little concrete information. and several contradictory statements, especially around three issues. How bad were the conditions on the mountain, in particular regarding avalanches? When and why did the accident happen? And how did Hassan die? What did nearby climbers do to help? Wilhelm Steindl, climbing with Funterbach Adventures, heard that the porter had died in an avalanche. With time, the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. Luis Soriano was on the second Seven Summit Club team, which reached the summit one day later. I talked to the Sherpa who saw him fall and who helped Hassan back to the traverse, he told sources. Hassan slipped and fell and eventually stopped, face down, crying, until someone managed to drag him back to the traverse. The Sherpa who helped Hassan was Halong Dorchi Sherpa of 8K Expeditions. He later reported back to his expedition leader, Lakpa Sherpa, who confirmed the facts in the reports. Hassan's O2 mask broke in the fall, he said. Halong Dorchi Sherpa and one of Kristen Harila's camera operators helped Hassan back to the trail. The camera operator declined to comment. We have asked Kristen Harila for a comment but are still waiting to hear back. Lakpa Sherpa also said that after Hassan was eventually helped back to the trail but unable to move under his own power, he suddenly passed away. Not so suddenly, said Philip Flamig, a cameraman working on the mountain for Service TV. The porter was still moving 3 hours after the accident. Flamig was not there, but his drone was. Flamig was with Wilhelm Steindl and Team Serdar Mingma Sherpa near the bottom of the bottleneck at 2:30 a.m. They were waiting for the rest of their team and for the crowds at the bottleneck to disperse. Flamig talked extensively with Harila's camera operator. He confirmed that Hassan's accident occurred around 2:20 a.m., shortly before the main avalanche that fell at 2:35 a.m. Flamig started filming with his drone at 4:30 a.m. when it was still dark and continued until 5:30 a.m., 20 minutes after sunrise. Flamig and Wilhelm Steidl collected money for Hassan's family from their expedition teammates, even though none were close to the accident or the traverse. After trekking out, they visited Hassan's widow. She said it was his first time on the upper slopes of K2.
It was told by his wife to us. The wife told us that it was his first time on working on the K2 mountain.
Flamig said previously he had only worked as a porter to base camp, but this time he needed to make more money to pay for treatment for his sick mother, who was also at home when I visited. Hassan also left 3 small children. I do not know how there was no attempt to rescue him, although he was in a very complex place, right on the trail in the middle of the traverse under the Great Serac, Luis Soriano said. People literally had to jump over him on their way to the summit. I passed by that place on the following day, and the body was there. A tragedy. Lakpa Sherpa declared, there is no rescue team on K2, and the liaison officer can do nothing. Prior to his accident, some Sherpas in the rope-fixing team repeatedly advised him to turn around because his climbing gear and attire was so inadequate. But he chose to ignore them and continued to follow the other climbers. The majority of climbers were moving towards K2 summit despite the extremely poor weather. I suppose that after becoming hurt, he might not have been able to move, so it's challenging to take him out of the bottleneck. Lucas Furtenbach, owner of Furtenbach Adventures, said, we would have dropped our summit push and helped, no matter what it takes, even if it means we have to give up our oxygen supplies, and even if it means no summit for all our clients. This is a fundamental part of my pre-summit push briefing with all clients. I always prepare them so that if we come across a situation like that, we can help. Period. Mr. Steidl added, such a thing would be unthinkable in the Alps. He was treated like a second-class human being. If he had been a Westerner, he would have been rescued immediately. No one felt responsible for him. What happened there is a disgrace. A living human being was left lying so that records could be set. Ms. Harila told sources, it is simply not true to say that we did nothing to help him. We tried to lift him back for an hour and a half, and my cameraman stayed on for another hour to look after him. At no point was he left alone. Given the conditions, it's hard to see how he could have been saved.
We tried to save him, and also people behind us tried to save him, but it's very, very hard to save someone.
He fell on the most dangerous part of the mountain where the narrow trail and poor snow conditions limited the chances of carrying someone off. We did all we could for him. Obviously, everyone must be well equipped and have proper mountaineering safety training. climbers must also be controlled by team leaders to minimize the risk and follow guidelines. Mostly Pakistan's HAPs never listen to the team leader or manager because of a lack of knowledge, Lakpa Sherpa said. Expedition operators have to take responsibility for their staff and the staff they hire temporarily, for example for rope fixing. Of course, it should be a no-brainer to help other climbers in an emergency, no matter what the cost, no matter if this person is a client or staff. And if a staff member dies, the family has to be supported, Furtenbach said. If anything good came out of this tragic tale, it would be a greater understanding of the need for better contingency planning and procedures among all parties concerned, including officials, outfitters, customers, and people working in the mountains. But sadly, it's too late for Mohammed Hassan. In the shadow of Nepal's magnificent Annapurna Range, where the majesty of the Himalayas reaches its zenith, lies a realm of adventure and peril. The Annapurna region has long lured trekkers and climbers from around the globe, beckoning with its rugged beauty and the promise of summiting towering peaks. Having a long history of mountaineering, 2017 etched a harrowing tale of resilience and tragedy as intrepid climbers faced off against the formidable forces of the Annapurna. Officials from Nepal said that Uli Stek, known as the Swiss machine for his quick ascents of some of the world's most intimidating peaks, died in an accident. According to Dinesh Bhattarai, the Director General of the Nepal Department of Tourism, Mr. Stek, 40, was attempting to ascend the 25,791-foot Himalayan peak of Nuptse at the time of his death in preparation for an ambitious climb of Everest. The Annapurna region in Nepal is a popular destination for trekkers and climbers, but it can also be a challenging and dangerous place due to its rugged terrain and unpredictable weather conditions. In 2017, several accidents and incidents involving climbers and trekkers occurred in the Annapurna area, but one of the most notable incidents occurred on Mount Annapurna first. Uli Stek was no ordinary climber. His audacious ascents and blistering speed in high-altitude environments earned him legendary status. He was also celebrated for his solo climbs and incredible feats, which included shattering records on Eiger's north face and ascending the daunting south face of Annapurna in a remarkable 28 hours. Stek's extraordinary skills and unwavering determination inspired climbers worldwide to reach for new heights. Uli Stek set his sights on yet another monumental challenge, climbing the 8,091-meter Annapurna first, one of the world's deadliest peaks. Accompanied by his close friend and fellow mountaineer David Gottler, Stek embarked on this audacious journey with a fierce determination to conquer the mountain in his own quintessential style, swift, lightweight, and without supplemental oxygen. In October 2017, a group of climbers attempted to summit Mount Annapurna first, the 10th highest mountain in the world. However, they were caught in a severe snowstorm, which is not uncommon in the region during the autumn climbing season. The storm trapped climbers at high altitudes, making it difficult for them to descend safely. Several climbers were reported missing, and search and rescue efforts were initiated. Tragically, the storm resulted in the deaths of several climbers, and it was one of the deadliest incidents in the Annapurna region in recent years. The extreme conditions and the challenging terrain of the mountain make it a high-risk endeavor, even for experienced climbers. A message on Mr. Stek's website said that the exact circumstances of his death were unknown, and that his family was infinitely sad. This was the first recorded death of the Everest climbing season, Mr. Bhattarai said. On April 30th, 2017, tragedy struck. While acclimatizing and preparing for their summit push, Stek and Gottler found themselves on a precarious section of the mountain. Stek slipped and fell, plunging hundreds of meters to his death. The mountaineering world was stunned, as it had lost one of its brightest stars. The circumstances surrounding the accident remain a subject of debate and speculation. But one thing is certain: Uli Stek's passing was a colossal loss to the climbing community. His charisma, humility, and pioneering spirit had left an indelible mark on the sport. Mr. Stek said in a video published on YouTube earlier in April that after scaling Nuptse, he would like to follow part of a route up Everest pioneered by the American mountaineers Tom Hornbein and Willie Unsold in 1963, which had yet to be successfully repeated. He was then planning to traverse the peaks, from Everest, the world's highest mountain, to Lhotse, its fourth highest. That transfer had been completed only once before. A veteran climber of Mount Annapurna in western Nepal, the world's 10th highest mountain, and several other 8,000-meter peaks, Steck had won several awards for his mountaineering feats. In 2013, Steck and two other climbers from Europe got into a fight with Sherpa guides over fixing ropes. The argument drove the climbers down the peak and made headlines throughout the world. Steck and a German climber found the bodies of two renowned American climbers, Alex Lowe and David Bridges, who perished in an avalanche in 1999 while attempting to climb Shishapangma, the world's 14th highest peak, just a year before the tragedy. More than hundreds of climbers gather at the Mount Everest base camp during the March to May climbing season as they prepare to climb the massive 8,850-meter Everest summit. After nearly dying in a fall there in 2007, he accomplished the first solo ascent of the Annapurna South Face in Nepal in 2013. The next year, he was awarded the PLA d'Or for it, which is regarded as the Oscar of mountaineering. Steck made the decision to ascend all 82 of the Alps' 4,000-meter peaks in 2015, exclusively moving between the slopes on foot, by bicycle, and by paraglider. He finished the task in 62 days, further solidifying his status as the Swiss machine. Steck once claimed that he saw himself as an outsider to the climbing community because he valued athletic successes over exploration. Steck reflected on the fleeting nature of mountaineering success and the inevitable decline that comes with aging in a blog post on his website. "The Earth continues to turn while records are being broken," he wrote. "You will eventually need to modify your tasks to reflect your advancing age because you are getting older." A practitioner of the fast and light technique, in which climbers minimize the amount of gear and support they take on, Mr. Steck began his professional climbing career at age 18. Relying on a streamlined approach and his own remarkable endurance, he set several alpine records, including the fastest ascents of the north face of the Matterhorn, the Eiger, and the Grand Gerace. Steck experienced a setback on his most recent expedition to Mount Everest in 2013, when he got into a physical conflict with some local guides. On his return this year, he planned to ascend Everest and Lhotse quickly, stopping for the night at an altitude of at least 8,000 meters, known as the death zone, because the dangerously thin air there causes the human body to function at only 20% of its normal rate. Just a month earlier, when asked about the planned trek, Steck told the Swiss newspaper Tagesanzeiger, "When I'm on Everest, I may stop at any point. Therefore, there is very little risk. It's mainly a physical project for me. Either I make it through, or I lack the energy to complete the entire traversal." When asked about the definition of success, Steck responded to the newspaper, "Of course I want to climb Everest and Lhotse, but that's a really lofty objective. To fail for me would be to pass away and not return home." 4 years earlier, on Steck's previous attempt on Everest, he and professional climbers Simon Morrow and Jonathan Griffin got into a fight with Sherpas at Camp 2. Steck described the fight in a Q&A with Outside magazine as a near-death experience. He said that he and his other climbers weren't planning to utilize the rope lines that the Sherpas were preparing on the mountain. They desired to ascend to Camp 3 and spend the night there in tents. Uli Steck's accident on Annapurna serves as a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of high-altitude mountaineering. Even the most experienced climbers can find themselves at the mercy of the elements and the inherent risks of the mountains. Yet Steck's legacy endures. His spirit lives on in the hearts of mountaineers who continue to be inspired by his audacity and passion. The climbing world now commemorates the anniversary of his passing with Uli Steck Day, an occasion to remember his achievements and reflect on the lessons learned from his life and tragic end. It's essential to note that climbing in the Himalayas, including the Annapurna region, can be extremely hazardous due to factors like avalanches, crevasses, altitude sickness, and rapidly changing weather conditions. Climbers are advised to be well prepared, physically fit, and to have the necessary experience and equipment to tackle these challenging peaks safely. Additionally, it's crucial to stay updated on local weather forecasts and make decisions prioritizing safety over summiting in such treacherous environments. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section below. If you liked today's video, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.